we have Scott Jaschik from Inside Higher Ed. I will let you do a brief intro of yourself and then move into your talk about free speech and security.
Well, thank you very much, Lee, for that introduction. I'm not going to introduce myself. I believe that you really have a very important issue here to discuss. And so I want to get right into it. So what is going on? I would say higher education is facing the worst cases of academic freedom and of free speech being denied that it has in recent years. Stanford University will be my first example. Several weeks ago, Stanford had a speech by a federal judge. And the federal judge, it doesn't really matter that much who he was, but he is a very conservative federal judge. He argued against gay marriage. He's argued against trans rights. He's argued against affirmative action. Lots of things that Stanford students naturally disagree with. When he appeared at Stanford, he couldn't give his speech. The Stanford students and some others shouted him down. Literally, he couldn't be heard at Stanford. And those of you who are familiar with the higher ed market know that Stanford is very proud of its record on free speech, more proud than other universities. And Stanford couldn't control the counter protesters. They just couldn't. At one point, the judge asked for an administrator of Stanford to come in, and a dean of the law school for diversity, equity, and inclusion came in, and she sort of tried to help him. She said that he should be given the right to speech, but she criticized many of his positions. This truly was stunning at Stanford. And it's not unique to Stanford. At Virginia Commonwealth University, they just had an incident with a speaker who was literally shouted down. And ultimately, in both cases, the police were called. These became incidents of security and safety, as well as academic freedom. Another case at San Francisco State, a speaker who was a swimmer, a woman swimmer, and she is opposed to transgender swimmers being able to compete on teams. As a swimmer at Penn competed this year. She talked for a little while, but she couldn't be heard. And the scene of her leaving, she was truly, she was harassed. They were shouting at her, shouting trans life matters. And she left. She says she was attacked. The physical attacks are not on video, but she says she was attacked. And they're not allegations, these are facts. This is what happened at these universities. What's happening, we have a story today in which we talked to the protesters at Albany. And the protesters say that all that matters is that the speakers were people who were hateful in their ideas about students. And I do not contest that. I do not agree with any of these speakers. But these speakers, I would say, this is my opinion, deserve a right to be heard. They were invited to campus and they couldn't give their talks. This is really a new kind of situation. It's one thing to protest outside, to hand out flyers as people are coming into a protest, even to stand in a protest and silently express your point of view. Those are all means of effectively protesting a speech. Shouting the person down isn't, in my opinion. And these incidents are happening in higher ed. They're happening with increasing frequency. Every incident I mentioned is in the last month. Think about that. 1 month, and all of these incidents took place. But that's just one kind of academic freedom under attack. Another kind we saw at Harvard. Harvard did not let originally a person who won a fellowship at Harvard didn't say why, but they wouldn't award him this fellowship. Now, this person happened to have views that were very critical of Israel. The person also happened to work for Human Rights Watch. So he has views that were very critical of most countries in the world, including the United States. But it is true that he was very critical of Israel. He was originally denied this fellowship after he'd been approved for the fellowship by everyone along the way. Now, Harvard got embarrassed and they awarded him the fellowship for next year. So you could say a happy ending. But then let's look at Hamline University in Minnesota. At Hamline in the fall, an adjunct professor shared an image of Muhammad. In fact, it was a respectful image of Muhammad. There are images of Muhammad that are used to denigrate Islam. This wasn't one of those images. It's in the library of the University of Edinburgh. It's not a denigration of Muhammad. Some Muslim students complained, and this professor, an adjunct professor, did not have her contract renewed for the spring semester. And the president said at Hamline that in cases like this, the principle of being sensitive to students should come first before academic freedom. And this is despite the fact that the professor had told students what was going to happen, had told them that they could not come to class that day, but students came and were upset. This truly divided higher education and the world of art. Since then, we and others have written about it a lot. The president at Hamline has announced that next year she will retire. I'm not sure you can say it is because of this. She'll have been there almost 10 years, and it's a long time she's getting to consider it. Now, I've seen a number of comments have come in. I want to just address them. I agree that colleges are supposed to be open to divergent viewpoints. Historically, it is also true that people perceive that people in powerful government positions are putting forth policies that are taking their rights away. They revolt. That is absolutely correct. On campus today, it's not a great time to be a Black student or a Latino student or a gay student with what is going on. There is very little tolerance and respect, and colleges have to recognize that they're there. In fact, I would say if colleges did a better job of recognizing that, they would be likelier to have their students not do things that violate the issue of free speech, but they are. And another question is, what happened at college as a place to hear, explore, and think about divergent viewpoints? That is a very good question, but many students do not feel safe, and that is a huge problem. Things are getting really testy at this time, said a DEI official, and that's very important because things are very uncomfortable for many students. They may be LGBTQ, they may be Black or Latino. They can have all kinds of issues, but that's what we're dealing with.